I'm Baby Gouda. Oh, hi. Hi, sugar. Hey everybody, so I want you to know that I'm well aware that it's May, it's the middle of the year, and a lot of people are about to start doing their like mid-year booktube type videos. Well, I am starting this channel a little late, so I'm going to be doing some catch-up, and I am going to be telling you about my January reads of 2021. I hope that's okay. If it's not okay, then, I don't know what to tell you. I'm going to do it anyway. I'm going to be doing these in order from least liked to most liked, and the first one is actually, unfortunately, an arc that I read, and I don't like to shit on arcs. And that is Mr. Right Across the Street by Kathryn Freeman. I would give this book negative stars if I could. I have never hated a character or a book probably more in my life. I just think it was so bad. So basically, you have dual point of views. There's Mia, who moves to an apartment alone, and across the courtyard she can see neighbors through the windows. And every morning while she's working, she's a website designer, she sees this guy, this really hot guy, working out across the way. And then there's Luke, who is a bar owner, who is the guy, of course, across the street, and the bar is like right below their apartment somehow, some way. She gets bored one night, goes to the bar. She walks in his bar wearing a t-shirt, and it has, I'm pretty sure it had some like stupid coding joke on it, because, she's a nerdy girl. She isn't like other girls, so he falls in love with her. You would think from the way he reacts to her wearing a t-shirt in the bar that he's never ever ever seen a girl wear a t-shirt before. It's kind of disgusting. I absolutely hated this book. It was just filled with everything I could possibly hate. It almost felt satirical. It didn't feel real to me that someone actually wrote this and was serious about it and thought that it was a good way to write this kind of person. Like, I don't know, just the girl she slut-shamed, she fat-shamed, she, had so many double standards, like all the other girls who worked on their appearances and who were beautiful and went, dressed up and put on makeup to go out, she's better than them. And then she wants to watch Luke through his window exercise every morning, which is putting in an effort to make yourself look better, because he does it, for the physical appeal. And it's just crazy that, she appreciates that so much because he's, working on himself and making himself look attractive. But then when a girl puts a dress on, which is so easier than putting on a whole outfit, by the way, or if a girl puts on some makeup to make herself feel good, she's trashy. I cannot, and I'm not saying you have to always morally agree with a character, but this character just had so many double standards, and I think that that's where it lost me. I don't agree with this book. I don't like this book at all. I wouldn't recommend it to anyone. It's even worse than I'm making it out to be, too. It is so much worse. My blood boils, thinking about how terrible this book was. And I am sorry that this arc was wasted on me. Oh, it was wasted. On to something slightly better. I also read How the King of Elfhame Learned to Hate Stories by Holly Black. And this is an illustrated novella. It's a companion to the Folk of the Air trilogy by Holly Black. And if you're a fan of that trilogy already, then you will probably enjoy this little novella. It doesn't add anything to the story, I don't think. It gives you a little bit more background on Cardan's childhood, and it does give you a few scenes of him in the human world, which is really cool. I wasn't let down by it. I didn't have any huge expectations for this. I knew what it was going in, but I just really loved Holly Black's Folk of the Air trilogy a lot. I love the first two books. I was obsessed with these books. And then Queen of Nothing came out, and it was a huge disappointment to me. I didn't like it at all, and I don't think it lived up to what I expected it to. It kind of just felt wishy-washy, too convenient, not enough. So I just wanted some type of closure on that series because I felt so cheated with the last book. So I'm glad that I read this, and I think that if you like the series at all, you would still like this if you could pick it up from the library. Go through the illustrations, because the illustrations are really beautiful, and it's a lot of fun to get to see Cardan on the page. The next book on my January wrap-up is Circe by Madeline Miller. And Circe is one of my most anticipated reads. I have been working up to read this book for a really long time, and I actually was down between Circe and Song of Achilles because I knew I was kind of only going to mentally be able to read one and probably not back to back. So I did check both out at the library, and I ended up taking Song of Achilles back, and I kept Circe. It was really good. So Circe is the daughter of Helios, the sun god, and she is born without any special powers. powers, and her family treats her like shit because of it. And eventually she learns that she's actually a super powerful witch, and she does do something bad, and Zeus doesn't like it. Zeus punishes Circe by sending her away to an island where she has to spend the rest of her life. And while she's on this island, she hones her skills for witchcraft and she becomes like this amazing witch. And along the way, we get to see a bunch of cool characters from Greek mythology that you're probably very familiar with, such as Daedalus and Icarus, of course Odysseus, Penelope and Telemachus, Hermes and Athena. I don't know if I've said them. And I really enjoyed it. I didn't just enjoy it for like the combination of all these mythical stories coming together, which was a lot of fun, but I also enjoyed just the journey that we take with Circe. This is definitely a character-driven book instead of plot-driven, so it is a little dull, it's a little boring. I just really enjoyed watching her find what life means to her. Her family treats life like it's nothing. You know, humans are on Earth for a second, but they're on Earth forever, and so they matter more than humans do. And of course this comes up in a lot of fiction. I've actually recently just watched Invincible on Amazon, which deals with this a little bit as well, actually a lot. Spoiler alert, this book made me so sad. I just wanted her to be happy. I wanted her to experience just joy for 1 second, and I'm not saying that there is no joy and that there is no happiness, because there is, and I do think that the ending is worth the suffering, but it was hard to get through at times. Other than it being kind of just like a little depressing, it was still really, really good, and honestly, like, the depressing parts are just part of the story. That's how it goes. That's how a lot of Greek myths go. You know, there's violence, there's death, there's mean, cruel, not cool people, you know, they're all frustrating, and you just want to punch them in the face, but you can't because you are nothing, and they're fictional, so whatever. I would recommend Circe to anybody, honestly. I think especially if you enjoy character-driven books, Circe is a really good example of a character-driven book. And it's also just really good, even if that isn't your thing. I think the book is worth reading. So the final book on my January wrap-up for 2021 is The Burning God by Rebecca Kuang. This is the third and final book in the Poppy War trilogy, and it is an epic historical military fantasy book. And it's heavily inspired by 20th century Chinese military war history. It's super brutal, it's really graphic, and it's amazing. It's one of the best trilogies I think I've ever read. I want to heavily advise you to read them. Like, I want you to read The Poppy War, which is the first book in the series, so badly. If you were to read any book from this list, I think you should read The Poppy War. I think it's just one of the most amazing books. I think it just hits a lot of boxes for a lot of people, and it covers a lot of ground, and it's so good, and it's really like in your face about what it's saying and what it's standing for, which I think a lot of fantasy kind of avoids doing. I think fantasy is just naturally allegorical, and I know that, you know, there are some authors who say, you know, my book isn't an allegory for anything, there is no bigger meaning, this is just, you know, the world in fantasy. But of course, as readers, we like to read into things sometimes, and we really like to read into what an author's message is, and I think that The Poppy War is really, really good. It's really in your face about like white colonialism and the brutality of war, and a lot about Chinese suffering. Basically, this series is about a war orphan, Ren, who lives in a very poor southern part of the empire. And, you know, it's that perpetual, like, class state where you're stuck in the caste that you were born into, you can't get out. Well, Ren wants out. So Ren works her ass off and studies and does all this crazy ass shit to learn the information that she needs to for this test. She ends up passing the test, and not only that, but she ends up in the top of the top. And she ends up going to Sengard, which is the like most elite military school in the country, in the empire. I've been saying empire, I hope empire's right. And of course, Ren gets to this school and she does not belong. She is darker skinned, she is poor, she's seen as dirty, she has an accent that they don't like, she's just different from them, and she doesn't belong with them, and so they treat her like absolute shit. And then eventually she learns that she is a shaman, and shamanism is kind of viewed as like this quirky, you know, mystical, mythological thing. You know, shamans don't really exist. But it turns out Ren is one, and she has this ability to call the phoenix, or the fire god, and burst flames through her body, like just through her skin and through her eyeballs and through her mouth. I mean, it's really fucking cool. She's so different, and I really, really, really enjoyed her because I kind of hated her. I think she is stubborn, she's annoying, she's frustrating to deal with, you know, she's got a hard head. I think all the characters around her in the book can see that and they feel that and they get frustrated with her as well. And you just go through this whole trilogy where in the first book she's in school, and then, you know, no big spoilers, but obviously the war begins and we get to see that firsthand. Her power comes heavily into play in the war, and I just think it's one of the best trilogies I've ever read. There is a lot to say about those books, and I think one day I will create a separate video just for that trilogy alone. But for now, I just want to say that this third book and final book in the trilogy, even though it was probably my least favorite, it was still, you know, a blow away book. It blew my mind. It was really good. The ending hurt. It broke me into a million pieces. And even though I expected the way it ended, it still hurts, you know? I get goosebumps just thinking about the way it all happened and just what had to happen and how it all went down and just the aftermath of what might be happening now. It's just devastating, but amazing at the same time. I just can't believe that Rebecca Kuang wrote this. Rebecca Kuang is younger than me, and I know that doesn't matter at all, but whatever. Don't compare yourself to others, but compare yourself to others. I'm really upset that she's so successful. I'm so jealous, but seriously, she's amazing, and I will follow her anywhere. She has another book coming out that she just announced called Babel. That's gonna be so good and really painful. So yeah, I would recommend this book to anyone, literally everyone and anyone. I do want to say that there are a lot of triggers in these books specifically related to sexual assault. Obviously there's gore and there's violence. Read at your own risk, but it is so good. It is so good. I can't recommend it enough. So those were my reads for January 2021. And I hope you enjoyed listening to me talk about them. And if you didn't, please, leave a comment. Let me know what I did wrong, and I'll take that advice into consideration. But if you did enjoy it, I hope to see you again next week when I talk about my February reads, because that's right, I'm doing every month. Let's talk about it. Did you guys read any of these books? Are you looking to read any of these books? Or are you not gonna read any books now that I've talked about it a little bit? Just let me know. See you guys next week. Bye.